That's one good thing about humans is that you can get used to anything pretty much, no matter how bad it is. Actually, it's a good thing and a horrible thing because you could get used to something that's like actually really bad for you and will eventually kill you.
Yeah, man.
It's like, I'm just living this life.
This whole thing about, boiling a frog very slowly. Sometimes I think about it and I'm like, am I living my life nicely or am I fucking myself over without even knowing? But actually, I feel very glad about my life. So
you have made your own. You are boiling yourself in your own pot. Everybody is very slowly, but
dude, that's
let's not think about that part.
Beautiful way to describe musicians. Oh, you chose to be a musician. Okay, you're gonna burn in. No, I'm just kidding. By the way, like I started this interview without even introducing you. Sorry, let me introduce you for the few people out there who don't know your name. So if you like jazz and you like video game music, you surely know Carlos Insaneintherain. He's one of the most prolific, original, crazy, fun, talented composers and arrangers that I'm aware of, that exist in the world right now. And he has a YouTube channel where he makes no worries, man. He makes video game arrangements, but also makes some original compositions. And he also makes like these medleys of different video game music put together. And you perform those with like very different people. So that's one thing I noticed a lot about your channel is that it's not only about you. Like many times you feature other musicians and many times you feature like entire ensembles. And I'm very curious about that. So I'm curious about, why did you start making music? Was that always your dream or because
man.
You're very young, by the way. And when I see your stuff, I'm like, fuck, I wish I was that talented.
Yeah.
At that age.
I'm 22 right now. That's how old I am.
That's gonna make lots of people angry.
I'm so like it's a fact of life. I'm very sorry. If you feel mad, then
no,
that's your problem.
People who watch this podcast usually are just very positive, so I don't think there's gonna be anyone who's mad. But they're gonna be like
that's totally fine.
Starstruck like me because this is amazing. But yeah, tell us how you started, please.
Yeah, so my first ever exposure to music was, I think I was about 6 or 7 years old. I want to say 7. And one of our family members had this upright piano in their house. It's actually right there. It's this upright piano that's down here now.
Wow.
That they didn't need in their in their home anymore, so they like donated it to my childhood home. And my parents were like, maybe Carlos would have fun messing around with this thing.
They didn't know what you were getting into.
Yeah, they had no idea how much noise they were signing themselves up for like the next 20 years.
Oh my god.
So I actually like taught myself how to read music and play the piano using these little like really old method books that were inside the bench of the piano that came with it.
Wow.
And like I'm talking like super old, like ink is faded, pages falling apart. And it was a very much trial and error process. Like when you have piano sheet music and they have there's numbers on each note that tell you what finger to use.
Yeah.
I used to think that meant you have to play that note many times.
Oh god. Man, wow.
So I would see like an F with like a 3 on it, and I would say, okay, I have to play that F 3 times before I move on.
That's amazing, man. That's wow. So you must have learned to that's when you learned to arrange music, I suppose, because you were playing differently from anyone else. You're like, oh, probably.
Well, I'm not exactly sure that had any lasting consequence, but I learned so many like musical lessons like by myself during that period. Like I remember I discovered what a key change was, like organically, because I had this other like this Casio light up keys keyboard that had a like this song called, I think it's like On the Bridge of Avignon, I think is the name of the folk song. And I realized that I could play the same melody and have it sound the same but start on a different pitch. And I was like, oh my god, I have revolutionized the world of music. And I legit came up with like this whole system of like, okay, if you want to make the song in this new dimension, you take this note and you convert it to this note. And I was like, composers everywhere are gonna freak out when they figure out my idea.
God. This young kid figured out these magical music tricks. Gonna make you very mad.
Yeah.
How old were you
I know.
at that time? When you discovered, how old were you when you discovered key changes?
Oh, maybe like 8 or 9, like so within a year.
Did you use the internet much? Or were you like...
No.
So
no,
this was in the pre-internet era, kind of, for you?
It was my pre-internet era.
Yeah,
like I think the internet was around, but let me see. This would have been like 2005, 2006.
Wow.
Around then. so like the internet existed for sure, but I just wasn't really like using it.
Yeah, I think that's
myself
probably good because
yeah,
it sounds to me like your appeal of like growth and discovery comes from an inward, desire of like trying to see what you can come up with by messing around with stuff that you have. Well, if you have the internet, you have all the answers there for you. Maybe you're not as interested, probably.
Well, the internet has all the answers, but it also leads you to an infinite number of questions and possibilities, which is great, but also awful because, as musicians, like our work is never done. You've never reached the ceiling of your abilities.
Yeah.
And the internet just proves or like goes to show like there's like the ceiling is so much higher than you thought it was.
Oh man, holy shit!
Like,
there's people making content every day that makes you question if you're actually good or if you have a still.
Yeah.
Well, for me, that's you actually. So there you go. Like when I listen, like,
I am sorry.
I've been making orchestral music for quite a few years, and as someone who's self-taught and all those things, I feel pretty good about that. But there was a time where I just made trailer music every day, and then I went on YouTube and I found like covers of video game music from Family Jewels, Richard DB, you, Little V, and all these people. I'm like, fuck, they're so fucking talented. They can play anything, and like,
look at them. They're having fun with their lives. Why can't I?
Yeah,
do that?
No, dude, it was really like that because like I was in a period where I was really like that's not news for people who know me very well for many years, but I was like really questioning the way I was going about my career because I loved to make music I was making, but I also felt I wanted to do a bit more, something a bit different, and I noticed that there's a lot more growth than I can have as a composer, and I was like, I want to make stuff like they do and just to rearrange video game music, but in a way that's like unpredictable, and that's how it is with the internet. But
well, moments like that, I think where you go through like an extremely bad period, I actually think are really important and really good for you, even though they really suck in the moment. But like every like major shift in my life that I've made as the result of a really negative experience has always turned out to be one of the most important things I've ever done. Yeah. And I think that's tremendous. Like I think about that with COVID too. Yeah. And how the world is going to, my hypothesis is that I don't know how much the world is going to change, but especially for the people who has impacted the most negatively, I think it has the most potential to be a really positive force long term. So that's, and you can extrapolate that to multiple things, like having your identity crisis over what content you're creating on the internet. As I've gone through, I've gone through that many times.
You did?
But, oh yeah, I'm going through one right now, but I'm on the tail end of it.
Okay, I'm curious about that. But yeah, like there's, you can say there's always, in the way I see it, I completely agree with you. There's always a positive in the negative, and sometimes there can also be a negative in the positive. I just think that things keep on changing. So when I'm having a very bad time, I think, the good times are gonna come, eventually. And when I'm having a very good time, I'm like, I better enjoy this because the bad times eventually gonna come, So it's just the flow of life.
If you just trust in life that way, you trust that that's how things almost always work out, then I think life becomes a lot more simple that way.
It's quite tough sometimes to take it though. Like sometimes you can get hit pretty bad and you can really not see the light. And I wonder, like, is your optimism something that you learned, or is it something that you always had?
I think overall, I've usually been a pretty optimistic person. I think now, as I've worked on developing like mindfulness and being aware of because like by nature, I am a very like logical, like do this way and execute kind of person. As I'm not sure if you'd be able to tell, but that's like math was my favorite thing in school besides music. I'm that kind of.
I wondered about that actually. Like, what would you be doing if you were not a musician? But yeah, so
I don't know if I'd be doing math, but something very logically focused. And where was I going with this? Oh yeah, so for me personally, I've had to work really hard to get in touch with my emotional side. Which I think for some people is they perhaps have the reverse problem where they consider themselves overly emotional and have a hard time just like sitting down and like chaining yourself to a chair and working really hard for like 4 hours in a row. That's the part that comes naturally to me. But the hard part comes like with empathy for like myself and for other people and relating to them on an emotional level. I don't know. Sometimes I just don't feel anything. Like I just notice that, like someone's telling me this really sad story, and I'm just like, that sounds bad.
Yeah.
I just like I don't feel anything.
I can understand that. Sometimes I have the empathy of a banana, and it sometimes makes my relationships a bit difficult because it's hard. I'm kind of like that, but slowly I've learned to embrace emotions as well. Like, what is the reason why this is something we have in common? Although it sounds to me like you're kind of like a bit of a genius in a way. But for me, I'm just.
Please, I would never. For the record, I am never using that word to describe myself because I don't believe in that concept. But
no one does.
You may use it if you choose to.
You might be like, you seem like someone who's very like, let's say, gifted in a way, or someone that has a certain. These words, I don't like them because they have a pretext of like being like, oh yeah, he got it when he was born. But no, you probably
they discount they discount the amount of time that went into it. Yeah.
But you have this like innate desire to go for the logical stuff, and then led you to develop a very sharp mind. Let's say. For me, I'm not really like I'm.
for me, no. I'm just really dumb.
Yeah, I'm really kind of stupid. But that's also like that's how it is, man. But also, like I've never been like sharp at logical, but I'm quite creative. But yeah, the empathy stuff and the emotional stuff is hard. But I found that it's very important as a musician to like get in touch with that side of your personality. So I spend more and more time. So why did you do that actually?
I think because as someone who, I'm not going to use the word like, I don't like saying gifted, but as someone who, I have a very active mind. I'll say that. I can acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And I realized that most of my problems in life were the ones I made for myself.
Okay.
So like most of my problems didn't come from other people. I mean, and I'm fortunate to be in that situation, but they came from like self-destruction.
You've realized that at 22. There's many people who, or maybe earlier, there's also people who spend their whole lives without realizing this. And I think that applies to everybody.
I know. That's why I talk about it, because I want people to understand that it's a real issue.
How did you figure, like, what was the breakthrough, the moment? Did you read a book that hit you specifically? Or?
I started experimenting with meditation in high school.
Okay.
And I found, like, I don't know, I tried like the app Headspace or something.
Yeah, same, dude. I used to do the same thing.
Yeah, and then I realized, like, oh my God, there's a whole world in here that I didn't know about. So I think my thought process was, if I can learn to know myself and control my own mind, like in a like maybe not control, but like keep it in check, right? Let's say that. Then I think I can eliminate or reduce a lot of my self-induced problems.
Yeah, that's because then you become more like your mind becomes less of a beast, right? And you can take hold of certain emotions and let them pass. So for people who have never done this, meditation is not necessarily being like but meditation is like,
that's one way. You could do it that way.
That is one way. That makes it sometimes easier. Sometimes. But meditation is just the practice of even just going on a walk or going on a bike can be meditative, because meditation is the process of like sitting down and try not to get attached to any thoughts you might have. Just look at your thoughts pass through like clouds and not get attached to any of them. And that kind of eventually silences your mind a bit down, and it calms it down, and you experience this state of like almost joy because there's nothing else bothering you in a way.
Yeah.
And this stillness that then when you go back to your life, you go back to being a normal person you were before, but knowing that you have access to that stillness makes you a bit less crazy in a way.
Yeah, this is a weird connection, but one of the people one of the groups of people that inspires me the most in life are Navy SEALs. Like the U.S.
That's not
Navy
weird
SEAls.
at all. Actually, that makes sense.
Okay, good, because they are like the most badass people ever. Like just to like walk this earth, it's like ridiculous what they do. But the thing that I am inspired by the most is their ability to like detach and just do, which is so remarkable. Like they're trained so hard to execute things a certain way, and when it comes to be go time, they just like flick a switch in their head, and every trivial, you know, thing in their life just disappears, and they just do the thing. You know, which is to me is, especially with like the level of difficulty of what they have to do, of like, you know, extremely sensitive, life-threatening missions that like are national security issues, like brilliant. I'm in such such awe of them. I don't want to be one, but it's cool.
Well, I think that's a skill, or that's a, you know, a skill to aspire as a musician, because like as a musician, I suppose when you go perform live, you kind of feel the worst fears ever. Maybe not you. Do you feel panicking a bit when you go perform or something?
I think I actually have I really haven't had very bad performance anxiety ever. It's that maybe at the beginning it was a little more difficult, but it's just gone down so much for me over the years that I just feel really natural doing it, and I don't, you know, like it's because I practice for them.
Yeah, I think like you've been really spending all the time making music, like playing.
Yeah, like why should, like, if you've truly prepared the amount that you feel you need to prepare for something, which you should do, then you have no reason to worry, because you've already put forth all you can, right? And that's what I try to do. If I have a live show coming up, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna practice for this, so when the time comes, I can say to myself, you've practiced for this, and just kick ass. You know, I don't have to worry about, I should have spent this time practicing this specific thing. Like, it's just, there's a solution to that problem. It's just practice and trust in yourself. And then that frees up the mental space for you to have fun on stage. And that's the part that goes over to people more frequent, like that communicates to people more than maybe even more than the music itself.
Oh yeah, definitely.
When I do performances, I'm often like really like hyper excited and like jumping around on the stage, that kind of thing. And part of that is a learned behavior. But I'd say that I've learned how to express my my excitement or all this energy I have inside in a way that communicates it to the audience. And I think like showing like visual like dance, like even like the smallest dancing around, like going that from all the way to like
yeah, dude, like
hooting and hollering on stage. People love that.
It helps. Well, I've seen that actually with my music. One of the obstacles I had when I started to make like covers and stuff online is that no one really fucking cared. Even though my music, I have been making music for Hollywood movie trailers. That's a huge thing. And I made covers with that same quality, but no one, like not no one, but you know, compared to people who made orchestral covers of video game music, mine weren't getting that much attention or more. So it felt like the quality, you know, it helps, but it's not as like important as other things. And then
I have an interesting theory about quality I'd love to talk about.
I would love that. But yeah, I've seen like, then I started making these videos with the bass or whatever, where I just play and I jam. And or even videos where I show people how I write the music and then I show the music. Completely different results, because people can see the excitement in the music that I have for the music that I make, and that makes the music sound better in a way. And that's kind of, it's weird, but it's like this psychological event or phenomenon that just happens. So that's good. I can see people in the comments being like, oh, so just practice more. Okay, thank you. I'm not going to have anxiety next. Like, people are good. It's a whole ordeal to take, you know, control of your emotions.
I don't know. Actually, disclaimer: anything I say is not advice for this other. It's not my advice to somebody else.
I think everybody knows. Like, I think that's the subtext of any conversation like this. But but that's very fascinating.
But man, brief aside, my least favorite question is when someone asks for advice. I mean, I understand why people ask it, but in my mind, everybody's life is so different.
Yeah,
everybody's progression is so different. That the best advice I can give to someone is like, keep making things and trying things for yourself, right? Because I think that's the way to find what works for you specifically. Because the problem, if I recommend something to somebody, that may work for me because I'm a certain person, a certain kind of way, but it may be absolutely horrible advice for somebody else.
I think
so. It's a bit of a it's a loaded question, I think. And maybe there are some things that are more like cut and dry or they're obvious, but the stuff that I like talking about is the stuff that's not obvious.
Well, but actually,
you can't
I think
Google that stuff.
There's value. I see your point, and I understand it, and I'm like completely like, I think yes, but also I think there's a point in still giving your advice or telling people how you did stuff, because even though maybe it's not the advice that's perfect for them, that expands the realm of possibility, and that may be useful. And
I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I always try to give advice based on my experiences, but then if I see someone asks for more and their questions tell me that they're not the person that is right for my advice, I will tell them, oh, go on Google, or I will send them to someone else that I'm like, this might be more for you. But I always give the reply, because, you know, there's some questions people have that you really don't have any answers to, and hearing some, they're like, okay, I don't know if I can do it that way, but it's possible.
Maybe the specific problem I have with it then, because your explanation makes complete sense and I agree with that. My specific problem with it is when people imply that by giving advice based on their own experience, that their own experience is the only way.
Oh, fuck that.
And yeah, which is absolutely not true.
No, fuck that. I hate that. Honestly.
Yeah, and I've met people, or like especially like teachers in like educational institutions in the music world who think that's the case.
You don't sound to me like someone who will be very like. To me, you sound like if I had to be your teacher in anything, either like I would be very happy to have you if I'm somebody who wants to be challenged. But I think teachers who want to teach you, oh, this is the way, my way or the highway, probably are going to hate you because you don't seem someone who's very impressed with like, oh yeah, that's how things are, and I'm just going to
That's what happened. That's what happened with my private teachers in college.
How was your experience actually? Like, what are the funny thing? You went to Berkeley, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. This is one of the best colleges of music in the world. And actually, when I started making music, I was like, hey, I could go to a college, and to get an idea, I took an online course at Berkeley on electronic music production. And then I was like, man, I could go there physically for real. But then I was like, let me do it by myself, and self-taught on the internet. But funny, like there was a part of me who was like, I need to go to Berkeley. So maybe in a separate alternative life, we could have met at Berkeley and become friends there. But what are
pretty sick? I would have done that.
That would have been amazing. But what are the things, like, we say top 3 things that happened to you or you learned at Berkeley, and the worst 3 things also, if you want to share them. You don't have to,
okay, let me start with the worst ones, because the worst ones are the ones that stick out really, really well. One is oh man, I know these feelings are just having to word them in a way that people who didn't go can understand. I think one is working with teachers who are skilled musicians but horrible teachers. I went through a fair share of those. One story from Berkeley that I guess accurately demonstrates this point is, in my first semester, I was assigned to play in this ensemble that was like a jazz combo with like 5 people. I think there were like 2 horn players, or maybe it was 1 horn player, it was just me, but then piano, bass, drums, and guitar. And our instructor is a relatively well-known tenor saxophonist. I won't say his name, but there was one time in rehearsal. Oh god, this is like it stings. Where I went into rehearsal and we were like playing the tune, and it was my turn to solo, and then like in the middle of my solo, the guy just like, our instructor just like stops the band and then asks me, "Do you practice?"
Damn.
The answer is like, yeah, of course I do, but like, that's not. I can maybe understand what the point he was trying to communicate was.
That must have felt very insulting. You know.
Oh yeah, it was awful.
You know, what did you say? I know myself. I would have had problems, because I cannot shut up when people treat me like that. I'm always like, of course I practice. What do you like? I would have replied in a very bad way.
I said something to that effect. Yeah, of like, yeah, of course I practice. I've been practicing this. And then he said something like, well, like, you don't sound good enough, or something like that. I don't remember exactly what was said. And you know, I thought about like quitting the ensemble and not spending my time with that teacher. And it was my first semester, so I was like, you know what? Let's just go through it and see what happens, and like just deal with it for a while. And it ended up being, you know, an okay experience. But God, that was I had a couple other teachers, not that were quite that bad, but ones that were clearly great musicians, but just like not equipped to share their skills properly, which is understandable. So that's number 1. The number 1 worst thing. The number 2 worst thing is letting your social standing at a music school define your self-worth. Wow. It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, fuck. That must have been hard.
Yeah, like, imagine, like, you're the best, like, you're like in your social circle in your hometown, you feel like you're the best musician or one of the best musicians, right? And then you end up going to this place where suddenly you are now average because everybody there is the best musician in their own town, you know? And then you start questioning like, well, is it even worth it for me to be here? Am I actually good enough to be here? And these are real issues that a lot of people go through. And that's certainly I think if you can learn to fight through that and learn to find a better way to to feel good about yourself despite all that.
I think like that's very important skill as a musician in general, because even when you become like a pro and you get out of school, there's gonna be lots of musicians that are far better than you. And if you define your self-worth by the amount and quality of work that you put out, you are living a cursed existence. Because
especially as an artist.
Yeah.
Especially as an artist.
I've been through
because
that.
That's not what
you feel like
art is not a quality competition.
Yeah, you don't have to prove anything. You just have to express what you have inside and what your understanding of the world is, right?
Exactly.
But
and
it's
and
very,
there's an
sorry, I'm interrupting.
You finish. Okay, I'll finish my spiel just because I'm like so upset and passionate about this thing. It's like it's not a quality competition, and everybody has something to say, but by putting it in but by feeling beholden to how society's social hierarchy works, it can make things feel worse. Yeah, and it can make you feel like you have nothing to say, even though everybody has something they can say. Yeah, and it's if you can justify it to yourself, that's good enough, and that's important enough.
That's why I don't like competitions and stuff like that personally, because I feel that puts like a bad vibe. It's not a competition. It's like, yeah, as you said, everyone can say something. We were talking about this with Jonathan Young last week, and about how the capitalism had a bit of an impact on music, and now it's all about, here's the hottest musician right now, and they have this, and that, and you have nothing. And yeah, I've been through that. Sorry, there's a police coming because we're talking about controversial stuff. 1 second. Okay,
what did you do?
What did you do? It's just we're talking about music being free. Come,
Alex. Alex, you posted this bass cover without the proper copyright license. We're gonna arrest you now.
Man, that'll be an epic way to go to jail. But besides that, man, like I've been through that. Like, not the police coming to arrest me for bass. I've been through feeling feeling like that, the sense of like, I feel like a worthless person and I have to apologize my existence by being awesome, by creating this amazing art. And that is the way that I can excuse this useless human that I am. Not as crazily as other people, but I felt those tendencies, and eventually I snapped out of it, because I'm like, this is not a winning solution. You're never happy when you live like this. You don't feel great about yourself. You don't feel great about your art. You feel relief when you get success for a moment, but then it dies. You cannot just say, I got this very massive hit 5 years ago. It doesn't matter anymore. So you just have to learn other ways. And also I think being in a situation where you're surrounded by people who are way more talented than you is actually good sometimes, because it means you can learn a lot, So yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah. It's just sometimes that can be very challenging.
Definitely.
My third negative thing is it costs way too much money. Like, holy crap!
Jeez, when I saw it, that's what stopped me. I was like, I saw the tuition prices. I'm like,
yeah. So if you're going in with no financial aid or scholarships, it's somewhere around like $63,000 a year.
Yeah, it's fucked.
Which is nuts. Like,
why do you think it's so expensive? Like, to me, it sounds like a barrier to entry, and it's like only the truly dedicated can come inside. And when you pay that amount of money, then the teachers can just abuse you, and you have to take it in a way. And
that's part of it. I think by the quality of a product that you purchase, even like the perceived quality increases as the price increases.
Oh yeah.
I feel like that's how Apple works. It's like you feel like the quality is better, and not to say they don't have good quality products, but
no, they do, but they know how to price them also in a way that people feel like they become like religious followers of Apple.
Right, and that's one thing about it. Another one is just like there's a lot of administrative costs that go into running a school, probably frankly way more than there need to be.
Mm.
And that's probably an overall problem with the college system here in America. I'm not equipped to fully talk about that, but as far as I know, that's an issue.
Yeah.
But so for my situation, I had like a partial scholarship that I got when I auditioned, and I also had like scholarships I got through the school and support from my parents and my grandparents who have been saving for this since I was born, you know. Not specifically music school, but for college in general. So I was able to go through without taking out loans, which was
it's a huge blessing. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And just, how volatile the music industry is and how hard it is to make a living with music.
What did you think
I'm not sure
going in, actually?
I think about what?
When they were okay, how did you feel when you decided to go to Berkeley? What was your family originally supportive, or were they really want to do this? How was the reaction they had?
Well, thankfully, my family has always been very supportive of whatever I've chosen to do. Even if it's stupid YouTube music videos.
More than that,
they've always been very. I think to me they started off that way,
okay,
and they maybe they've grown to something more legit. But they've always been supportive of me. So there was never really any issue.
How about you?
For them.
Yourself, how were you feeling about taking this jump?
It really didn't feel like a jump. It felt like the natural thing to do. Probably because at that point, I had already I was by the time I got to Berkeley, I was 4 years into making covers on YouTube, and I had already so I had already experimented and realized you know what, I like this music thing. This is something I could see myself doing for the rest of my life. So I didn't go in with any questioning or regret of should I be doing this, or should I go for a real job? And then I realized that there's no such thing. There's no difference. It's, I don't know. With a real job, somebody else has control.
Yeah.
And with your own job, you get to keep your own control. To some extent.
It's the thing is for people who don't have, or they're not self-employed, that's how it is. And also on the other side, you're responsible for everything when you have a real when you're employed, you take every responsibility, every risk, you take it yourself. Well, if you're employed, someone else does that for you. Someone else does your taxes. So yeah, it's there's some nice things about being employed by someone else, and some nice things about having I guess self-employed job.
Yeah, you just get to pick your problems. Yeah. Okay, so now onto the good things about music school that I recommend. Number one best thing, hands down, is all the people I met. Absolutely the best thing that you could possibly get. The monetary value of that is infinite, in my opinion. It's so high that it's almost worth going through the loans and taking out money. Almost justifies that entirely. I met people from all over the world. Some of the best musicians I've ever seen in my entire life were at that school. I got to play music with them. I got them to record on some of my albums. It's just, even though there is a downside of being surrounded by musicians who are really good, there's also the plus side of being able to think, I have this project and I need to put together a whole big band of musicians, which is for those who don't know, it's 5 saxophones, 4 trombones, 4 trumpet, piano, guitar, bass, drums. So that's what is that? 17 musicians, and that 17 professional level musicians. And I could just list 17 people I knew off the top of my head. Just okay, here's all of them. And then you just ask them and they're all just
that's
yeah,
amazing.
Let's do it. So that's super cool to be around that community of people. The closest thing I've come to matching that is the video game music cover community, which is interesting. Because the best thing about, in my opinion, the best thing in my life that's happened because of doing video game covers has been meeting all these people. Like you. I would have never crossed paths with you if we hadn't been doing this, or some of my best friends like Jules and Adriana, Sab, Bro, all these people who are mainstays in video game music.
I wish, for example, Sab and Bro were more known, because holy shit, they're so fucking talented. They can do so many things.
Yeah, exactly. And
Jules and Adriana also, they're amazing, but everyone knows them.
Yeah, well, it's because Adriana's saying bubblegum KK on Alfred's Alfred's channel. But anyway, like it's just been so. I think one of the fundamental best things about life is interacting and meeting people, and that's almost like what the core of life is. I think for humans. This is maybe very meta, but music is a way of doing that, right? Music is a way of communicating emotions and feelings in a way that words can't, from human to human, and it's really fun. And that's just one way to connect. You know, another way to connect is just like meeting somebody in person and talking to them, or meeting them online and talking to them. And I think the more experiences you can have doing that, the more you learn, the more you get the experience of the world, the richer your life becomes. So I think, like, screw networking, you know, like, I don't even think of it that way. Like, yeah, there's probably some career financial benefit to it, but it's just like an inherently good thing for everybody's life to connect with people. And it's great. I mean, I say this as an introvert. I was going to ask you, like,
are you introvert or extrovert? Because I cannot put my finger on it, actually. Are you ambivert?
It's interesting because I don't know. I've always, like, whenever I've taken like the Myers-Briggs test, I've always scored high on introvert for myself. I think the difference is I've learned to flip the switch. There's like a specific switch in my mind that I flick. Like right now, I think I'm in extrovert mode. Like I think I've, because I'm talking with you, you know, I'm doing like a public thing. I flicked the switch. This also happens when I'm at like conventions or performing. I flick the switch in my head. But the second that we get off this call, I'm gonna be
introvert mode.
I'm gonna be like,
yeah, okay, that's the same. That's literally the same as me. That's that you call that ambivert.
Yeah,
someone that can, but you know, you recharge your energies by being by yourself. That's the same thing that I have. Right. And yeah, that's it takes work to get there, and it takes a lot of like social intelligence also, and it takes a lot of like you need to be someone who cares about it, who cares about connecting. So that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Again, like.
Yeah, it's
22. Jesus, what was I doing at 22? Well, no, I was getting into all this stuff. So that's the main. I'm so proud of you, man, for many of your considerations you have right now.
Thanks. You know what, Dad? Thank you very much, Dad. I appreciate that.
Dude, come on, I'm 26. Stop. Don't call me that. Yeah. No, what is
that's what I tell Jules. That's what I tell Jules. I tell Jules, like, whenever he says something good about me, I'm like, thanks, Dad. Appreciate it, Dad. Even though he's everybody's dad, he's my dad. I have there's two more good things about music school.
And then remind me, there's something I want to ask you about going to school while you're making covers, but then for later. So two more things.
Sure. Okay. So number two is the structure of the institution. Like, you know, like you said, all the knowledge is free, and you could take the class online and learn it all yourself. But the benefit of going to a school is that you are fed it in a very specific way that is understandable, and they give you terms to use for these things. Like, when I came to school, I knew like the basics of jazz harmony, but I was introduced to something called chord scale theory, which just like completely blew my mind. Of like, wow, this explains everything. And I like that, the Lydian chromatic concept, modal interchange, like, and non-functioning chords, parallel things like that. I had experimented with all these before, and I knew their sounds, but I never knew the words to use. And I was never fed this knowledge in a way that had been distilled and explained by someone before. Right. So technically, very technically, which I always tell people, is that if you wanted to learn all the harmony stuff that Berklee has to offer, just buy the textbooks. You can probably find them online somewhere. You can buy them. And they give you the information you need to know, or you want to know, in a very specific, structure. And that's really useful, as opposed to just, going on tutorials online and trying to find it all for yourself.
Yeah, that's a good
the knowledge
point,
is all there, but you're not getting it in
a structured way.
Getting it in,
like, you can really follow nicely and stuff without getting lost.
Yeah. And that's so underestimated. So that was my second thing. The third thing is, actually, you can get this anywhere, but the sheer benefit of like having to move away from a place that you're so used to and living someplace completely new that's like part of the college experience, and a huge part of it. Moving into like the dorms at school, like renting your first apartment, that kind of thing. You know, that is because like going to college. So for the record, I'm from Seattle, Washington, which is on the west coast of the U.S. And Berkeley is in Boston, Massachusetts, which is on the east coast of the U.S., clear opposite sides of the country. So I literally moved across the country to go to school. And, you know, having to navigate all this stuff by myself, mostly with the help of the college structure for the dorms and stuff, it's like, it teaches you so many lessons, you know? Like, not even music lessons specifically, but just lessons. So, like, if you go to any music school, this is a good benefit.
Yeah, you definitely, like, when you move around, you kind of expand your understanding of the world. Like, and also you become, you grow up because you're like, I need to rely on myself a bit more now and stuff like that. You're not so close to your friends. And also when you travel somewhere where there's nobody who knows you very well, you can act differently without feeling weird about it. That's kind of why I like to move around a lot. Like, I'm from Italy, Milan, but I went to Japan for a month and a month and a half or something. Then I went to London, and now I'm living in Prague. And every time I moved, I kind of discovered a new me. And that's pretty cool.
That's cool. Yeah. That's cool. I want to do that someday. But
yeah, might be.
I'll have to figure out what to take with me.
Yeah, that's the thing. Might be tough with the instruments, but actually, you can even just, you know, one thing that some of my friends that do this a lot do is they move somewhere, they just bring their small computer or something. If they need instruments, they buy them there, and then they sell them before they leave. And that's, you know, just nomadic. But it might be a bit tough for you because you're a multi-instrumentalist, and you can pretty much play anything, and that's part of your music.
Yeah, you know what? Let me just take my grand piano and like and condense it down, squish it down. I'm sure it'll be fine, just like a hydraulic press.
That would be amazing. Hasn't someone invented something like that yet?
The pocket piano, or like I don't know. The best thing is probably getting like I don't know, like one of those like rolling MIDI keyboards where like it's like a rubber thing and you could like unroll it.
But it's not the same as using like a real piano, right? It's you miss.
Well, yeah, of course. But then like then plug it into Keyscape and then.
I was wondering, man, like about music, and like with this conversation, there's so many fucking directions that I want to go, but I know that there's not so much time either or something because your day is starting. I don't want to take all your day. But one question that I had before is like, you started making music. You started making music 4 years before, or rather, you've done covers for 4 years. Before you went to college, right?
Correct.
You kept making covers throughout your college formation, right? At the same time?
Correct.
How? What's your time management like? How was it?
Google Calendar. Google Calendar, man. Like, it's, I still do this pretty much every day. So I am the kind of person who likes squeezing everything out of the day as much as possible. And I think that's important because, you know, you have a limited time. A limited time offer to make whatever you want whenever you're alive on Earth. So might as well do the most you can. And in college, basically, I realized that I had a lot of classes going on, you know, and I would put them on my calendar, and then I would still like have this deadline I wanted to meet for new video on Saturday, and then I would figure out, okay, where in this week can I fit in these tasks I need to complete to finish making the video? And basically, every day, the night before the night before the next day, I'll go into my calendar and then block out exactly what I'm going to do in like half-hour increments.
Wow.
For most of the day. And the important part is not that I stick, because some people see that and they're like, oh my God, that's scary. But it kind of is. It kind of is a little scary. But the way I see it is that I want to go through each day with a clear intention of what I want to do and accomplish. Yeah. It's not important to stick exactly to the specific times unless it's a time-specific event like a class or this interview, right? I had to be here at a specific time for that. Otherwise, I just have these blocks of time dedicated to specific things, and when I see them, I'm like, okay, I know I want to work on this at this point. If something else comes up that's pressing, I'll probably do that, but my intention is to work on this.
That's very powerful.
And just this, yeah, even the simple act of doing that is really useful. And it helps you, you know, squeeze yourself. Maybe I wouldn't recommend it for everybody, but
no, like here's
for a while I was doing weekly videos in school, which is nuts.
Yes.
I wouldn't recommend. Don't do that.
Making weekly videos in general, I think, is nuts by itself. Especially if like they're like, you're not just simply making videos like, hey, here's me, I'm talking to the camera about random shit and uploading it. You were writing full-on like jazz fusion arrangements. So you were composing, you were mixing, you were producing, and then you were recording the performance of multiple instruments, editing that together, uploading it, by making it a thumbnail and everything. That's a lot of things. It's not just uploading a video. Like I don't want people like I was rewatching many of your tracks yesterday, and I was like, man, I hope people don't think that Carlos just sits down in 1 hour and just comes up with his.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah. But the way you go about it, I do something similar where I don't have like a half an hour increments of stuff, but I'm like, okay, Monday is the day where I'm gonna make music. Tuesday is the day where I'm gonna record. Like, for example, today for me is a recording day. I recorded a video for YouTube. I managed to edit it and upload it as well, and now I'm recording the podcast with you. And tomorrow is gonna be composing day. So it's good to have these tasks or these like goals for a certain day to know what you're supposed to do, and then go at it. And then if you want to do it half an hour increments, that's even better, I suppose. But for people like me who
that's certainly one way to do it.
For people who are like more chill, that are like, oh, I don't know, then choose what you want to do on every given day. And having a to-do list is very good. Still, man, like, did that leave you any time to like play video games or go out with friends and stuff? Like, how do you do your free time?
That's if there's one thing, I'm not sure I regret doing it that way, like doing it the way I did. But the trade-off was that I didn't have a lot of time for friends or relaxing activities. Like, for me, it basically became whenever I wasn't in class, I was probably working, and that
it can be tough. But
I am where I am now. I am where I am now as partially a result of that, right? And I can't say I'm not happy with where I am right now, but it did come at the expense of opportunity cost. Like, what if I had spent that time going to jam sessions, or like actually forming more friendships, or just are treating people that I was in relationships with like better at the time. And I don't know how my life would have gone if I had done that. I don't regret it, but I know that there was certainly something I lost by doing that.
I had the same feeling.
Yeah, and
with my career and stuff. But yeah, please go on.
Yeah, I don't know. There's so many possible ways to go through life, and I don't think it's really worth it to spend your time ruminating on like what could have been, or thinking if I had just done this one thing differently. Well, you can't. So all you can do is make the best decision you can at the time. If I were to give advice on it, though, I would say don't do what I did. Don't do what I did. Don't do what I did unless you're like, I don't know. It was probably fueled by some fire I had inside of me.
I don't want people to think, oh fuck, he's another musician that is like cursed and he feels like he has to make music or he's gonna feel bad. I honestly think that when you were doing that, you were really exhilarated. You were like, oh my god, yes, I cannot wait to make even more music. Like, it sounds to me like you were passionate and excited about it, right?
Yeah.
That's usually,
for them, that's how I kept doing it.
That's usually it. Was not like cocaine or something that fueled you. It was like passion, which in a way, like true passion is even, I suppose, better. I never tried cocaine, but I suppose it's even better because it keeps you going at the cost of nothing. Besides, like the time.
Dude, jazz is the natural cocaine of life.
Actually, like, why jazz? Like, why did you choose this genre as your specialty?
So I never actually chose it. That's the I just kind of stumbled into it. Yeah, in a way,
Miles
maybe.
Contrain came to you in a dream. It's like, Carlos.
Yes, Miles Coltrane, the combination of Miles.
Wait, we're gonna leave that.
It's Miles Davis.
No. Now it's Miles Coltrane. That's how it is. We'll leave it at that.
The ghost of Miles Coltrane. Oh my god, that's funny. But I started doing jazz in like middle school at this jazz club we had, where it was my first introduction to playing jazz music. And like I remember I was like, at the time I'd only been playing in like like concert band, like wind ensemble kind of stuff. And now I was being exposed to like, wait, you can just improvise? You just do what you want? And I was like, oh, okay. And eventually I started listening to jazz, like to jazz records, to get to be able to play better at school. And I realized that, wow, this music is really...
Which records?
Like, really, really deep.
Which one are your favorites?
My very first jazz record that I can remember is Inner Urge by Joe Henderson, which is like... Joe Henderson is a tenor saxophonist who has a very unique style, and that's like a very I don't know what year it came out, but like that's a good like first record, or like a really intense first jazz record for somebody. One of the other first albums I can remember, which is kind of funny, is called The New Standard by Herbie Hancock. And what that album is it's a bunch of jazz versions of pop songs.
Oh damn! So that was,
and I don't know how much influence that one specifically had, because I actually didn't know any of the pop songs like before going into it. So I just knew some of the great like the.
So eventually,
great,
when you found them,
it was just
you
good
were like,
music.
"Oh, they're covering Herbie Hancock." Like when you found the original pop songs, you were like, "Oh, these guys are covering Herbie Hancock."
No, I think I figured I think I went back to listen to it a few years later, and I realized that, oh, this is called The New Standard because it's making new jazz standards out of these existing songs, and so that's how I
Do you feel
that
like your music is like, one thing that I see a lot in jazz is that, again, people have like some reverence for the music that defined jazz. Again, you know, Miles Coltrane, okay, Miles Davis. And John Coltrane. that was amazing though. Miles Coltrane. Like these people really define jazz, and I find that people nowadays even are still like, yeah, this is real jazz. And I just see this from the outside, but it seems to me like even though it's a genre that took its roots in like improvisation and like self-expression, sometimes it kind of feels like a bit traditionalist. Is that true? Do you feel like it's a bit, you know, holds? It's like, don't you dare change this, or is it more like
there are certainly groups of people who are like that, yeah, and certain I guess you would call jazz purists who believe that anything that
do you get like messages from them for your covers or something like that? Do you ever get like, how dare you use our knowledge for this like common folk people music?
Not maybe like once or twice in like on like my in the comment section somewhere of like the channel, but like
doesn't happen
very rarely. It doesn't happen that much. The way I see it is just like, I think it's important to acknowledge history and be aware of what has come before you and learn from it, but I don't see some people like perhaps like a classical period musician, or like specialize in playing things exactly as they were in the Baroque period, right? That's their specific job, and you can choose to do that, and that's totally fine. All the power to you. Like, I've chosen to employ a more, I guess, liberal take on what jazz is, and because I mean, honestly, for me, like some of the stuff I make, like I wouldn't use jazz as the first word to describe it. But just because of how complex genres are, and for me trying to communicate a complex idea in a simple word that is like, that becomes my brand, basically, I just kind of default to jazz. And sometimes it's not always jazz. Sometimes it's more like fusion or funk or something like that. Basically, whatever kind of music I like. But it's all, if there was one umbrella term to describe all of it, I think jazz is the closest one for me. I am not a jazz purist.
Yeah, that was clear to me before even talking to you. I'm like, yeah, but yeah, how did you become a multi-instrumentalist, and what tips do you have for somebody who wants to learn more instruments?
So,
because like for people who don't know, like maybe they're like, oh yeah, jazz, he just plays brass. No, you play bass very well. Like, you're a freaking great bass player. You play the keys. You play, you know, you even have woodwind instruments. You have brass instruments. Yeah, you play the drums.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff. If my angle was wider, you could see all my instruments back here.
You play guitars as well, I suppose, right?
A little bit. I am not as good at guitar. Mainly because I can play like single lines on guitar pretty well, but my problem is with like harmony on guitar. I totally get that.
I absolutely understand that.
I'm so stuck in piano brain of like everything is left to right, and I can't imagine like just left to right, but also up and down. Like, I can't.
So how did you become an multi-instrumentalist?
Yeah, so it really, it was never like a specific, like I never wanted to do it as like a gimmick or anything. Like I don't keep, one of my least favorite questions is, how many instruments do you play? Because that's such a, I mean, I understand the curiosity behind that, but for me, like, you know, what defines playing an instrument? Like, if I can hit the triangle with the beater, does that count as playing the triangle? Or like, would you need to be able to do something more complex on it? But anyway,
I think the question's like, how many instruments do you feel Can you look confident playing or something? Maybe that's what they're asking about. Probably, I don't know.
Well, you could fake confidence on anything.
Yeah, but honestly, to their point, I think that you can play very well. Maybe you might not call yourself, like, I don't know what you think, but maybe you're like, oh, maybe I'm not a virtuoso at all these instruments, but you can play them though, and you use them profusely through your music. So
it really all stemmed from this desire I've always had to make each video better than the one that came before.
Oh,
right, and that's a very simple thing, right? It's like I want to make the next video sound better, look better, and just be overall a better product. And that's been my philosophy since the very beginning, is just keep making it a little bit better, which I think is tremendously powerful if you extrapolate that over a long period of time. And I think, the quality of my videos has continued to get better, which is something I'm really passionate about. So at some point I realized I was using, after I discovered what virtual instruments were, like I found like, oh, I can get samples of like a Steinway and play them. I can get samples of an upright bass and play them. And then I realized that no matter how much I tweaked those samples and worked with them and understood how to program, they would never sound real. And then I would always compare my recordings to the recordings I loved, which were all studio recordings of really great musicians on real instruments recorded with real like good microphones in a good space. And I realized if I want my music to sound like that, I should try and get as close to how they did it as possible, which means, recording real instruments. Now, the part, I don't know where I decided that I have to be the one to play all of them. Because I could have just asked a bass player friend of mine to do it. But yeah, that's part of it. And it's honestly such a really fun process for me to learn instruments, because not only does it make you better at the specific instrument, but it makes you a more well-rounded musician. You understand how to write for the instrument so much better. Yeah. Like now I understand why, I'm not going to write in A flat major or D flat for the upright bass, because the open strings just it doesn't really work very well. But I think it was also a matter of efficiency. Like if I was making these videos every week, I don't have the time to go ask somebody and give them enough time to, like, a reasonable amount of time to record a part. I realized that, well, if I can put all this burden on myself, I can justify, doing it in a short amount of time, because it's my thing, and I only have to get permission from myself. And was that the best thing to do? I don't know.
I think it, as a composer and arranger, it makes your work way better, So I think so.
I think so too. And like I realize sometimes that maybe going back to like having the convenience of just pulling out the piano and then like playing a sampled piano would sound maybe like 90% of the way there. Honestly, like it gets pretty close, specifically with piano, because it's the same input, but it's just not quite the same. And for me, that little percentage difference is like enough to make me not want to go back, even though it might be a little bit more convenient and quicker to do so. It's just not. It's not good enough.
Dude. Like you have to do what you personally like and what you personally enjoy. Like people would say stuff like that about their art a lot. Like, oh man, you may see a painter draw something and it's like, oh, this is terrible. And like, why? This is amazing. No, it misses this, light here. And you're like, oh, I didn't even see that. You need the expertise.
That's really interesting. Yeah. So earlier we were talking about quality, right? And I've had this interesting theory about quality, which I kind of guess goes at odds about what my like how I've been treating things. But there's a difference between your idea as the creator of what the quality of something is versus the audience's perception of quality. And I think that should be pretty obvious. Like, for me, maybe a quality arrangement is one that uses a diverse instrumentation, has a in-tune melody line, well recorded, well mixed. That's my idea of quality. Perhaps a viewer's idea of quality is how many times did he play the lick in the arrangement?
How many times he used Megalovania?
It's like at times that can be frustrating, right? Because the definition, at least my personal definition of burnout, is when your input does not match the output. Like your artistic input does not match the reception you're getting. And if you do that enough times, you're just like, why am I even doing this? This is awful. Like I'm putting in all this work. But I think once you learn to acknowledge that though that relationship that you think is there of like, I put so much effort into this, so they must love it. That's not the case. And it doesn't. It's maybe unfortunate, but it's really not.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. And I think the sooner you can acknowledge that, the sooner you can do something about it. Not saying that you have to, like acknowledging that the quality on the other end does not match the effort doesn't mean you have to change what you're doing. You know, you could just accept the fact that people aren't going to like it as much and just move forward. That's what I did with my whole year.
You do it for different reasons. Like you do it with a different understanding, different perspective. You're not like, man, I need to like EQ this snare perfectly, so then people are gonna like this more. You just, when you find yourself EQing a snare for 2 hours, you understand you're indulging in like self gratification, and that's a different perspective, right? So that's what you did for your channel.
Oh man, you just need 2 dB at 2K. That's all you need, and then take out a couple at like 200.
Yeah. Oh, don't tell that to music producers. They're gonna be like, oh no, you need this plugin and that plugin and this and that. And yeah. So that liberated you with your channel? Like you started feeling like better about your work after that?
It's something I'm still going through, and I think it's a process that all artists have to deal with.
Man, I was going through with this video I just uploaded just 1 hour before our call. You know,
see?
Like
all artists have to deal with it.
Everybody, dude, YouTubers deal with this a lot. And the thing that makes it a bit worse is that, man, the freaking algorithms that they exist for a reason. YouTube is successful for this reason, because the algorithms kind of define, you know, the amount of work that people must put in to stand out on the platform, and they gratify people who make work that is different and blah, blah. And as a creator, you feel compelled to create a lot, you know. So that's also when sometimes burnout comes. Like sometimes you create a lot, not because you feel like you want to, but because you feel like you have to. And that can happen. And then the quality stuff can happen at the same time. And it's, you know, it can get a bit difficult to cope with that. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's why sometimes it might happen. And it's not easy. What made you realize the quality thing?
I don't know what specific incident or what specific thing I read or heard made me think about it that way, but it's on one hand it's frustrating, right? Because you spend all this time on this thing you love, and then you release it, and then sometimes nobody cares, right?
Yeah.
Nobody besides you cares, which is a really soul-crushing feeling, you know, especially if you're letting how other people view your work define you as a person, because then you can start to feel like not only is my creation worthless in the eyes of others, I am worthless in the eyes of others.
Yeah, that's the logic. Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah. So I think I realized that at some point you just have to separate them, or that's one approach you can take. And so something I'm working towards now with my channel, I guess like a shift. Actually, let me go back a little bit. So there's a couple ways you can do this. One thing I did, I launched this project called The Year of Sinnoh, which was in September. I started in like September of 2019 and finished in December 2020, where most video game cover artists will like, you know, pick songs from a bunch of different games and just like do like one a week and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or every once in a while. I decided, let's do the exact opposite and pick only one game and cover only that one game for like an entire year. just to see what would happen, you know. And it was a game I was very passionate about, and it was a project that I wanted to do for a long time, and I did it. It culminated in the release of this album called Sinnoh, which is a 51-track long, 4-hour long jazz arrangement album of music from Pokemon Diamond and Pearl.
How many tracks are there in the Diamond and Pearl soundtrack?
Like 120 something, I want to say.
Jesus, that's a lot, man.
But that's including night variations and variations of tracks listed as separate tracks. So I would say I did like, my guess is maybe 75% of the unique compositions.
That's amazing.
On that, from the OST. Yeah, I mean it was a huge passion project, and I deliberately did it as like a big middle finger to the YouTube algorithm. Like, yeah, because I decided like, I don't care about you. I'm gonna do what I want, and whatever happens is what happens. And that was honestly really liberating for me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That was great, because this project, I wanted to do this project for such a long time, like since the very beginning. And I finally decided that, you know what, there's never going to be a right time. It's gonna take a long time, but I really care about this, and I'm going to do it. So I did it.
Man,
and
congrats. That was
thank you.
Super ballsy move.
Yeah, it was, because to my knowledge, like most other people on YouTube hadn't ever done something like that. Jules maybe did something like it with his Octopath album. I don't think he did it for quite as long as I did, but he did like an Octopath.
No, he did. People noticed. They were like, "Oh, you're only doing Octopath. Please do other. Please go back, please." And he was like, "Fuck you. Let me do my thing."
yeah.
And I was talking with him.
Sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah, and maybe hurt the channel in the short run, in the short term, but then in the long term, it's gonna be a good thing for you, I think, as a musician. You know.
Yes, as a musician, and like whatever pushes your creative potential is important. So since completing that, right, now that this like giant passion project is out of the way, I'm just like, what's next? You know, and what do I want to do? So my current compass or thing that I'm aiming towards is working in actual game audio. You know, doing more like of my compositions, my work for games. I've been lucky enough to record saxophone on a lot of things, and I've composed for a couple things here and there. And increasingly, that's the work that I feel the most satisfied by, as opposed to something like YouTube, which is still satisfying, but in a different way. Because, you know, working for clients and individual people, when you do something well and you turn it in, like they decide like, is this good or is it not good? And you get an actual answer. Like they say, this is great, good job. But when you put it on YouTube, it's like, it's there forever. No one really no one really tells you whether it's a success or a failure outright. You have to decide for yourself, and that's hard.
Yeah, like it's funny because, you know, I come from, again, like making music for traders, and that was the scenario. It's like the label tells you this is great, and maybe sometimes the song you use gets used in a trader, and then you get paid, and you get all the I made the trailer for this movie, and it's an amazing feeling. But for me, the soul-crushing thing was the thought of like, oh, like my music is gonna be judged by some gatekeepers, and if they like it, then everyone is gonna enjoy it. But if they don't, it's gonna be cast in the shadows. So I was like, I like YouTube because you can put it there, and people can just decide if they like it. So it's like opposite reasons. But I see your point also, because like when you make music for some, you know, some work, some clients and stuff like that, it's your music. In a way, if it gets put out there, it's you. It's not like cover of this famous song that everyone likes because they're not like people like the cover because they're nostalgic of something you haven't done. But it gets out there and it's your stuff, and it's you think it's my shit. It's a good feeling.
Yeah, I realized that when I was doing more like I'm pretty nerdy into copyright, especially with how it deals with my aspect of cover songs and business, and then. There's like a very slight soul crushing feeling when you realize you don't completely own anything you've made. Yeah,
the compositions for games and stuff, even.
Yeah, like the compositions that belongs to somebody else. You know, somebody else did that. You own the sound recording because you made it, which is a good thing. But like, you know, it's I want to be able to tell someone like, yeah, you can use my music in your stream.
Oh, stream, yeah.
Legally, I can't do that, and that's also another issue with like the relationship between copyright law and internet remix culture. I think there's a fundamental disconnect right there. That is maybe a bigger issue than we should get into. But it's interesting how your story is like the kind of like the reverse of mine in a way. And I think it goes to show that, or I think that I don't think you necessarily have to choose one or the other. Like YouTube is like user-generated content is fulfilling because you can, you know, pick what you want to do and just do it, and there's no gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Right? It comes with its own set of drawbacks though, right? That's we all know that. Similarly, creating music for like clients or private things, you know, you have it's a bit of a different task, and that comes with its own set of drawbacks. But I've found for me that the benefits of one like counteract the drawbacks of the other. Like it's interesting. Like if I feel stifled by a client telling me like, write this thing this specific way, and it's never like that crazy specific, but just like, you know, somewhat specific. And if I feel like I really want to flex on something else, I can do that over here.
Yeah, true.
And not over here. Whereas if I'm disheartened by someone putting out a video, I put out a video that nobody watches, and I don't get any like satisfaction from the release of that, I can do a kick-ass job on some piece for a client, and they can say, "Fantastic job, you really nailed it," and that feels good, right? So that's my idea of where I want that balance to sit for myself.
Yeah,
and I'm still working towards it. And then you have to figure out, well, it takes a lot of time to do both of these things. So then how do you reduce the time of all of them, which is a whole other issue that I'm still working on figuring out.
Well, I think it can be like the two things, by the way, can be synergetic sometimes. Like I've noticed that having an online presence and a strong online brand on like this user-generated content, platforms like YouTube or something, gives an incentive to people to hire you.
Absolutely,
definitely helps. So it's like it's synergetic. And for dealing with time, I would just off the bat just advise you, okay, do shorter form content on YouTube. Like that's something I've been experimenting a lot with. Like instead of making like full orchestrations all the time, sometimes I make these bass covers. And I just take the bass and I play for like 30 seconds, something nice, and I publish it, and people just fucking lose their minds like they don't with full orchestration that took like 50 hours to write. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. That's so that's interesting.
Yeah, sometimes you're like, I mean, there's space for everything. If I make a full arrangement, still people like it. But I noticed that it's not a requirement to get people to actually consume a video a lot. Like one of my most popular arrangements, remixes on YouTube right now is 30 seconds long. And there's many other arrangements that are very long that don't get as many views. And yeah, that's something I'm experimenting with a lot lately. And it's helped into, one, like the more music you make, the more quantity of music you make, I think, the better you get.
Yes,
Quality,
I totally
like
agree.
Spending a lot of time on one single song versus spending a lot of time on many different songs. It's better to do many rather than just one, in my opinion.
I think if your goal is to improve your quality, then I think if your goal is to improve on your quality, then focusing on quantity will help you get there faster.
Yeah.
Is it true the other way around? No.
Damn. I never thought about that. Man, that's like, that's
I don't know. There's something to be said. I'm sure you've experienced this too about creating something and then finishing it, right? And finishing it lets you tell yourself, this is done. I can step back and now take an objective look at this. Yeah. And see exactly what is good and exactly what is, not so good about this specific thing. And for me, that's been tremendously useful because something that a lot of musicians will do is record themselves while they're practicing, right? And then they'll go listen back to their recordings, and then sometimes you get now that you're not actually playing and listening to yourself at the same time.
Oh, you can see your mistakes and stuff.
Exactly. And when you have to record videos of yourself playing songs every week, that's recording yourself. It's essentially doing the same thing. Especially if you're doing multiple takes, and you listen to a bad take and you say, "Oh, let's re-record that one."
Right.
And it's a phenomenal practice tool. Like, people. One question I think I saw in that Twitter thread of like,
oh yeah, we should do questions because we're just
Well, just to answer one, was like how much time I spend practicing, and the answer is actually very little. Because I'm already a really busy person, but the most time I ever spent practicing in my life was in college because I was around. There were practice rooms in the basement of my dorm.
Wow.
There were people all around me practicing their instruments and getting good, and it was basically the normal thing to do. And practice is specifically deliberate practice of an instrument is something that I don't think everybody in every field knows exists. Like practicing an instrument is such a it's like going to the gym, but for a mental task. Which is fascinating to me. It's a mental and physical task, but it's probably more mental because you're not building like
muscle on your
big
fingers,
muscles.
Like it gets like
no, it's like it's more about
muscle memory.
Muscle memory and fine muscle control, right? And being able to become one with your instrument, that kind of thing. And there's a place for that, and I've put in countless hours on tenor saxophone, which is my primary instrument, doing that, and that's the instrument I feel the most competent on. I could just play just about most things that I would want to play on that instrument. For other things, I basically for me, recording the video almost is practicing it. Like if I have a part I write, I keep in mind what my current abilities on the instrument are when I'm writing it, so I don't write anything that's crazy hard. But if there's something that's a little bit out of my reach, I might spend a little bit of time just practicing and getting that one part down. And that way, it's like practicing on an as needed basis. Like I'm not spending all my time I don't have a list of all the instruments and okay, I have to do this one on this day, because it just sounds stupid and not worth my time.
Well, it would be hard to do that and marry it with the life of composing and arranging every day, kind of.
Yeah, it's just not really.
That's the same way
practical.
I do it, actually. And I was wondering about it, how does he practice multiple instruments? That's the same way I do it. I do it by necessity. I come up with an idea and then I record it, and I do a lot of mistakes while recording it and try over and over and over and over until I get a good take.
Yeah. I will say that is if you're looking for the best way, this is not the best way to become
proficient,
incredibly incredibly technically skilled and proficient at an instrument. But for what we're doing, you don't need that on everything. I think it's I don't know. There's something to be said about the process of doing that, like what I've done with saxophone and just going really, really deep into it. Something you learn a lot about that, but I don't think you need to do it for everything. Just like you don't if you go bowling with your friends, you don't need to be an expert bowler and study the geometry of the ball and the angle of rotation of your arm.
This is gonna liberate some people, because man, the amount of people that think that you need to be perfect at everything to make music is staggering, man.
I used to think that.
Yeah, everybody does, in the beginning. But then as you get your hands dirty, you start to realize, hey, I can do stuff without even having the perfect speakers or something. For me, I've been making music for now 8 years, and for most, I think a lot, more than half of those years, I always produced in my room with shitty speakers, not so great headphones, and I couldn't play piano. Still can't play piano very well. I couldn't play anything well, and I'm just learning to practice.
Clip. You can play it. You can play it.
Yeah, but it took me a while to even get that part right, and it's very simple. And now I'm really getting into it, but for some time, I couldn't do any of these things well. I didn't know music theory, but the one thing I learned to do is to trust my ear and use it a lot to reverse engineer music, to compose music every day, and learn production and watch a lot of tutorials. So there's lots of things I didn't do so well, but there's a few things I did well, and those things enabled me to write music. That was pretty cool. And to hear that even you, with multi-instrumentalist practices stuff, you just do it like this and not oh yeah, I need to be perfect on every instrument. It's very liberating for me, but especially for, I think, the people who are going to be listening to this. Speaking of which, I think we should reply to some of their questions, because...
Sure. Yeah.
Man, it's so interesting to talk to you. You have so many things to say and so many, interesting breakthroughs and stuff. But also, I want to give the people what they want. So let's do some fan questions. I think we replied to some of these already during the conversation.
Sure.
Yeah, Ro asked, Ro Panuganti. He's always asking, he's always there. When I'm on Twitter, hey, do you have questions for this person? And Roy is there asking questions. Yeah, he's great. He's if you could make a music video anywhere in the world outside of the US, where would it be and what song? That's a very specific question.
So this is a very specific dream I have. One of my dreams is to, initially the dream was to score a game with the Metropole Orchestra. The Metropole Do you know the Metropole Orchestra?
I know, because I've heard them in the Snarky Puppy recordings in the album. But I don't know where they're from, actually.
They're from the Netherlands.
Okay.
So I mean, it's kind of it's not so much for the scenery over there, although I think it's a beautiful country and a beautiful area.
Have you been in Europe before?
I haven't, and I need to.
You have to come.
I know. I know.
Sorry.
I will.
Please.
But I would love to I mean, I'm sure it would have to be something a little bit bigger than just a silly video game cover on my channel. Probably for some bigger project, but I would love to do a video in an actual big time orchestral compatible studio. I watch those kinds of videos all the time of just studio recordings, and they're my favorite thing to watch. And I love seeing professional musicians just like doing their thing in a nice space with good cameras. It's just like the happiest. It makes me the most happiest to do that.
Yeah.
So maybe not specifically there, but just in a professional recording studio somewhere in the world with other great musicians playing great music, with good recordings. And
I think you can do it. Like
makes me
I can definitely see that happening for you. Like, yeah.
I think so too. I'm just curious about how it will happen.
Yeah. Probably with like a client project. They're gonna be like, okay, we have the budget for a full orchestra. We're gonna fly you to London to Earth Studios, and you're gonna be, fuck yes, that'd be
like,
great.
Finally!
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Yeah.
Oh, man.
And okay, other question. What's your recording process like? We talked about this a bit before. Like you arrange and you write something that is like close to your level, but challenges you a little bit, and then you record it, right? Yeah.
So just a very brief overview. I start off by, if I have the song selected already, I transcribe it, usually myself. Like I take the original recording and I just sit down for an hour or two and just transcribe all the original harmony and all the writing.
You transcribe it on piano directly, or just what do you do?
Usually like right into Sibelius, which is my sheet music notation software.
Okay.
And I write down like obviously the melody, probably the bass line, any notable inner voice things that are happening. And I try and basically create a lead sheet, which is if you don't know what that is, that for jazz people, that's like the bare bones skeleton of a song, usually including melody, chords, any notable bass lines. From there, that's when this is like where the creative part comes in, and I have the arrangement. Usually, like I've done this so many times over the years that basically it just kind of comes to me, and I hear it in my head. Like I hear the whole song from the beginning to end in my head.
Wow.
And then I write it down in text form, usually like in a text editor, and it'll be something like open with hi-hat pattern kick on end of 2 and 3 with talk box playing riff, enter E minor 7 second inversion in horns ascending by chord tone, like writing it in text.
Damn, that's interesting. I never done it like that.
Yeah, maybe I should like share those, or I don't know.
That'd be amazing to see a video on it, like see the process like unfold.
I think that would be fun to do. So I write it out, and then once I have the whole song like written out in text of what I want to do, then I go into Sibelius and write all the sheet music out for it. Which is probably the part that takes the longest, just because you have to write a lot of stuff. But the way I see it is that if I'm writing the arrangement up front, it saves all this decision making later on. Like all I have to do after that is done is just read the part and play it.
Yeah, it sounds like you don't get writer's block often with this method.
It's because trying to solve writer's block is the problem. You can't actively try and solve writer's block, in my opinion. Because the creative process is very much a subconscious process, I feel, in that I'm also a big believer that there is no such thing as anything completely original, that most of the creative ideas we have are new combinations of things that we have experienced or heard before that are just brought up in new ways with the brain, which is really cool. So what I try to do is, if I have an idea and I don't quite know what to do with it yet, I just kind of leave it there. And I go do something else, or I might not even think about it for like months, and then suddenly randomly I'm thinking about it again, and I get this idea of like, wait, what if I did this with it? And then that solves the problem. It doesn't work so well if I have deadlines sometimes. Sometimes you have to you can, I don't know, jostle a little bit by listening to music, but I usually feel that trying to force it out doesn't make it as great.
Yeah, it can make it worse, because then you like the attachment is the reason why sometimes you get it, like the writer's block. You're like, no, I want this to sound perfect. I want this to sound amazing. So then sometimes just letting it happen as it wants to happen is the nice thing to do. and then you remember that no matter how perfect you try to make it sound, someone's just gonna listen for all the times you put Megalovania into the song, and then you feel so liberated, being like, I don't have to do this perfectly. Yeah, that's actually a silver lining in it. Actually, good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you use Sibelius as a composing tool? Because why is that? You don't compose directly with VSTs, right? You just do in Sibelius, so you can just write down the notes without having to care about music production that much, and you can
pretty much. Pretty much, it's just like all the sounds I hear in Sibelius are just general MIDI sounds, so they're really bad. And I don't really care about the sounds in Sibelius because All that I'm doing there is translating what I heard in my head and I notated in text earlier into a form that I can read back and reproduce on other instruments later. And then that makes the process. I'm front loading all the creative work into this specific part of the process. Because for me, arranging is just a series of a lot of rapid decisions that you need to make. Like, who plays this melody? How do I voice this thing? How do I do it? And it's just like bam, 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 bam. Like decide all these things and put them in.
Right.
I don't care how the mock-up sounds. Like, I just care that something that exists and I have directions for myself in the future. So when I'm in the future, if future me like pulls up this tenor saxophone part, and all I have to do is start the song, press record, and then play the part. You know, as I wrote it before. I don't have to think about making decisions, which is great because it just makes the process go by much quicker, and I'm not having to revise.
That's why I think like now you're making videos for just like multiple Carlos at the same time, and I think that's literally what's happening in your life. Like you have arranger me, recording artist me, and then mixing engineer me, and then video creator me. You're wearing different hats in different situations rather than do everything together, right?
Yeah, pretty much. It's also been helpful because lately I've been having some people help me with mixing and video editing. I basically try and stop my involvement after I record everything. So I'll pick the song, arrange, go up to recording everything, and then I'll send off the stems to a mixing engineer, then send off the videos to my video editor. And then they handle the rest of it because I give them feedback for sure, but I trust their judgment for the most part. And that's been really helpful for me because the part that I like the most is probably the performing part. Like, that's my bread and butter. I would say that's my favorite part. Second favorite part is the arranging part. But if I had to pick only one part of the process to keep and get rid of everything else somehow, I would just keep the part where I'm performing the song.
Okay, I see.
Because I like that part. That's where I feel most at home. Like, I don't feel like I'm most at home mixing, even though I can do it and I've learned to do it pretty well. Like, it's not like what gets me going. You know, what gets me going is like solo take number 22 on saxophone.
I think I think I can see that in your videos. Like, you're having a lot of fun. Like, that's the thing that I notice a lot. One of my favorite videos of yours is like Root Buster. Because you have all these jokes that you make, and also like, you just vibe a lot. I'm like, damn, this is so amazing. That's pretty cool.
That's such a good song.
So how much time do you think you spend on every song then? Like, the whole process.
I used to use time tracking software where I would like manually go in and start like whenever I started working on something. I haven't done it in a long time just because, I don't know, it takes too much effort for me to actually do that. But in the days when I was recording and editing everything, I would say average video is probably about 15 to 20 hours.
Like everything like, included? Like recording, arranging?
Everything.
Wow, man, that's fast.
And that's 15 to 20 hours of like focused work. That's not 15 to 20. That's not like, when people say they work 40 hours a week, like, that's not
they
true.
mean like,
you don't actually, you are in the office for 40 hours a week. You're not working for 40 hours a week. For me, this is actually working like 15 to 20 hours for each video.
So that's also why you were able to like do all these things. Like, you are very focused as a person.
Yeah. Well, if you what does it say? Output equals intensity times time. Right? If you work at a really high intensity for a short period of time, you can get a really high level of output. Yeah. As opposed to like multitasking on something for like 10 hours, you barely get anything done, right? So like for me in the mornings is like, okay, hardcore mode, disconnect my internet cable, turn off my phone and all my electronic devices in another room, and like almost sometimes lock myself in this room and just go. Yeah, like I have to do that because if I do that, I can finish an arrangement in like one morning, which is a big deal. Like that's
I completely agree with that. Sometimes I can be a bit like but sometimes when I'm like working on a very important project, I will do those things as well. And another thing I do is I start working out more. I can be lazy, but when I need to be very creative and actually
we should talk about that too.
I was wondering about that because I see that you have a lot of videos where you do workout and stuff, and you seem to have gotten very passionate about it. And when did that start and why?
Oh yeah, so my dad is a powerlifter.
Okay.
He's been into powerlifting ever since he was a kid, pretty much. We have a home gym at home, which
Wow.
is in our garage, and he's got a whole bunch of like bars and all the weights you need and crazy machines. And he's I'm not as like I think like inherently into sports as he is, but one day in high school he was the strength and conditioning coach for this high school that he was working with, and he said, "Carlos, you're gonna come with me to these workouts." And I was like, "Dad, no, I hate the gym." And then I went in and I still hated it for like the first while, but then I made some friends when I was there and I kept training, and then eventually it just became I figured out it was another way for me to feel good about myself. Because I mean, as like I said before, as someone who has a very active mind, I create most of my own problems, and sometimes I've had issues with like being unsatisfied with how I look, my body image, and I think we all go through
everybody.
Yeah. But the great part about that is that while I don't think that constant obsession with body image is healthy, you can do things about it, and in fact, they're really good for you, like long term. So these days, I'm usually doing like 2 to 3 strength training workouts a week. Usually like about 90 minutes to 2 hours of like resistance training in the gym, squat, bench, deadlift, that kind of thing. And also doing stuff like running, jump roping, just like things to stay healthy and get my heart rate up, and stay active. Because I think also as a performer, I mean, less so because you're not
it's
on
important.
Stage
like you need to have like a lot of energy, a lot of breath, and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. And you need to be like it really helps to be fit and be able to feel confident in your own body on stage. And like the great part is like that's a physical issue. Like that's something you can actually do something about. It's part of it's a mental issue, like of like feeling self-confident, but the mind and body are so inextricably connected. And I think, working on yourself physically is fun. I find it really fun, but it also like just helps overall.
I think it makes your discipline better also. And you start to like be more okay with certain challenges in life, and you start to just be more sharp. Your mind is more sharp, more fast, and all these things.
Totally.
So like even if it came from a place of like, I want to like myself more, that's definitely a good thing.
Dude, I want all the VGM people who work out to like meet up in a gym someday and just like put on some boss battle music, and
man.
everybody works out together. That would be so fun.
Shit. What's your favorite boss battle theme, actually? I know one of your favorite battle themes is like the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torna, right? One of your favorite battle themes, for sure.
Oh my god. Well, no,
what
okay,
about
my favorite
the boss battle themes.
Gosh, well, oh my god, I'm like picking my favorite children. One of the ones that comes to mind, I actually haven't heard very many times, but is probably one of the most insane pieces of music I've ever heard. It's from Xenoblade Chronicles Future Connected, which is DLC that was released for the remastered version of Xenoblade Chronicles. It's called the Fog Beast battle theme.
Oh, I haven't heard that one yet, but everyone on my channel is like,
god,
please react to Fog Beast. I'm like, okay, one day, maybe.
It is like, it is. Oh my god!
Why?
It is incredible.
Why?
Because it has like, for a music nerd like me, it has the perfect blend of everything. Like a battle theme should be in most cases is high energy. Has like a good driving beat behind it. And this thing checks all those boxes just fine. Like it meets all the basic criteria. But like it goes like the harmony in it and the use of meter and rhythm is just so ridiculous.
Oh damn!
And oh my god, like,
okay, I will have to listen to it, and
I don't have any more words to describe how much I love that theme.
So is it safe to say like Xenoblade is some of your favorite soundtracks? I thought it was Pokemon.
Well, interestingly, so Pokemon Diamond and Pearl Platinum specifically, I would say were my favorite childhood soundtracks. They're the ones I have the most nostalgia for, and I think were responsible for most of shaping my music taste as I grew up. These days, as far as music that's actually influencing the type of music I want to write or get into, in like a professional sense of creating my own stuff, my favorite game soundtrack is Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Oh, that's a good one, man. Kingdom of Raya and
Oh my god!
Another track I love a lot is Lefterian Archipelago or something. Those are great.
I mean, and it's one of the like you know, like the leitmotif thing and how that's used in games. And that game is mostly scored by like the chills. Oh man, the chills are here. Man, if there's one of my teachers in school was like the best advice I ever got was follow the chills. So like I know every time I get chills, like I'm thinking about the right things. But so that was mostly scored by Yasune Mitsuda, and there's this leitmotif. Is my piano plugged in? Will this? Do you hear that?
Yeah, it's working. I can hear it in the microphone.
Okay. Oh, isn't anyway? But like there's a motif that goes like
Oh yeah.
That melody, like da 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 da. Like every time I hear it, I just like, oh my god, that's so good, and it just, man, it means so much. Like, I think I love it because the soundtrack is good, but I also love the game and I love the story so much.
Oh man, holy shit!
It's I don't know. It just like it spoke to me on Nia.
Nia
too. Nia. Well, it's either Nia. It's a tie between Nia and Jin, I would say.
Yeah, for me it's Jin, definitely. I really love his theme. Like it.
Did you play the DLC?
Not yet. When it came out, I didn't have time, and now I'm like, it's on my list.
If you play it, if you play through the main story and you like Nia and Jin equally, or like if you like Jin will be even like more your favorite character because of the DLC. It's that good.
Okay.
But I think, I mean, it's just like JRPG music is some of my favorite stuff out there. Because it's still the tradition is something that's very melodic and like well orchestrated. And that's the kind of type of music I like. Like most of my favorite bands that I listen to are bands that, well, like along with jazz influence, but they have really good melodies. Like the band T Square. You know T Square?
Not really. Never heard of them.
T Square's like oh man, you'll love them. They're like a Japanese jazz fusion band.
Oh damn.
And they're actually, I think Koji Kondo like cites them as like some of his like main influences, like way back when he's composing Mario. So it's interesting how like I found them separately and like the tastes just happen to line up. Like the T Square has this one track called Sister Marion, which basically has the Mario Brothers melody in it.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's funny, but the thing I love about music from Japanese composers is that their sense of melody is just so good.
Yeah.
And I think that strong melody isn't necessarily needed everywhere, but when it's needed, like, oh, they kick ass. Like, they're so good.
Yeah, I don't know if you played did you play Final Fantasy much? Like
no, the only one I played was Final Fantasy Tactics Advance on the Game Boy.
Oh man, that one was, okay, there you go. That one was fucking amazing. The composer for Final Fantasy Tactics, he made also the music for Final Fantasy 12. And Final Fantasy 12 is not necessarily one of the most popular ones, but the soundtrack in Final Fantasy 12 has one of the best usage of leitmotifs in the entire like saga. Yeah. And I think you would like that soundtrack. But it's very subtle, but it's very beautiful.
Yeah. I need to. The problem is JRPGs take so long to play.
Holy shit, that's the problem with them. That's really that's why I haven't played Torna Golden Country. But yeah, that's cool. That's I didn't know you like that much. I'm also a big fan, and I'm a sucker for JRPG music in general.
Maybe I should do like
the Year of Xenoblade.
No. I was thinking like jazz, like jazz musician reacts to Torna the Golden Country battle theme.
Yeah, dude, do it.
And then do like a harmonic analysis or something.
I'll be the first one to watch it. I love those videos, but I love it when I'm learning something. That's why when I make those videos myself, I always try to, many times I make them and I'm like, yeah, but this that I just shot doesn't teach anything, so I'm not going to publish it. And sometimes there are people who make them and they don't really teach anything that much, and I'm like, why? But then when I see one, I was like, oh my god, I learned so much. Yeah, that's dope. So definitely do it, man.
I think you're inspiring me. Like I'm in this phase of like trying out. I want to try to do different things with my channel and keep composing separately on the side. And I think that might be something I'll try. So if you see that video coming out on my channel, I will share it. This is the conversation. This is the conversation that inspired it.
Yeah. Okay, so a few other questions.
Sure.
Man, we answered to a lot of this just natively without even realizing it. But,
yeah.
oh, this one was interesting, but we already replied. How do you approach growth and learning? But we already talked about it in earnest.
Focus on fun and curiosity, and then that will naturally happen, I think.
Yeah, it's much better than focusing like, oh, I need to do this because we feel guilty or you feel obligated to. It's not a good thing. But yeah. Oh, maybe you're gonna hate this one. What tips do you have for... No, actually, another. How do you choose the songs you want to cover? Is it just out of like, oh, I like the song, so I'm gonna do it?
It usually comes down to a song that I have a good idea for. And sometimes it might not be the most popular song. And one thing I do have to acknowledge is that, my channel is a business and I am, in public facing. So I have to balance songs that I know people will want to hear.
Yeah.
With things that I have ideas for. And fortunately, I think I've gotten better about that over the years, like being able to find good ideas for songs I know people want to hear. And that's a challenge because it's like figuring out like balancing the businessy side with like the creative side. But usually it comes the songs that I've listened the songs that I choose from usually include like songs from games that I've played before. Sometimes fan suggestions. Sometimes it's like some new game came out and I perused the soundtrack and I found this really interesting thing. So I don't know. There's not really a super solid set process for it. Like I have a running list of songs that I would like to do that I keep in a document over time. And then sometimes if I have an idea for one, I'll say like, okay, this one can finally come out and let's actually do it, But that's really about it. There's not so much of an exact
you like
to it.
the prerequisite. It seems like it needs to be something that you like. Yeah, I feel good about this one because I have some ideas that I think would work very well with this arrangement. That's what I
pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, that's very similar to me. Like I keep track of everything. Like sometimes I'm just sitting down and like, okay, let's see what's good. Let's see what people are going crazy over, and let's listen to some of it. And then if I get some good ideas, I'm probably gonna try it or something. Yeah, that's a good answer. I would say I don't think people need to play every single game that they make content about. Like it's fine to make a remix of a song just because you like it, even if you're not a fan of the game that you never played it.
I think it certainly I think it can help. It can help.
It helps a
your
lot,
decisions.
dude. Like man, like I'm a sucker for Final Fantasy. When you listen to my Final Fantasy arrangements as a Final Fantasy fan, you know that I love the games a lot. You can hear it in the music.
Yeah.
But sometimes, even without having that understanding, you can appreciate a piece of music a lot and just, make it go crazy, right?
I just had this stupid idea of that. Like, I should do a parody of one of your videos, or like I don't know. I find some of the clothes that you wear and like put like one of your like hats. Then I have my bass. And I'm just like,
do it, man. That would be amazing. That would be so fun. That would be fucking amazing, dude. You're so good at bass. Not even joking. Like when I see your videos, I'm like, damn, this guy really knows. So go for it.
Thank you. maybe I'll do that. Pokemon is funky, and then just
dude, fucking do it. I was listening to Pokemon music yesterday. Why not? Why is it so funny though?
I don't know. It's just like it's because it's your style,
But it's
and
not. I didn't invent bass. I didn't invent funky music.
I know. Yeah, I know. But like, it's this very specific niche or format that you've created is your style, And I think it's always funny to like pay tribute to someone else's style in like a way that is just like, not trying to steal it, of course, but just like, haha, look at me doing this funny thing that this guy also does.
But I don't know about that. Like, I don't even know if it's my style because there were a lot of people doing that before I did. They were just, I don't know, on TikTok making like, playing guitar over.
Well, there are people making jazz covers before I did.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So like,
it's I don't know. Like, it's my perception of your style and what I would consider a large subsection of the population's concept of what your style is. Even if you're not the OG, I'm not. As you said, I'm not Miles Coltrane.
Can we just keep it like we have to mention this every time we talk? Miles Coltrane. No. You know what you need to do? Like make a mashup of John Coltrane and Miles Davis and just call it Miles Coltrane, kind of.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
But yeah, that's how it is. People maybe see that, it's Alex's thing, but actually no, it's not. It's just one thing that I saw And I'm like, yeah, it would be nice to play some funky bass over this stuff, and I do it. And eventually,
Yeah.
people are gonna catch up, and they're gonna do it a lot. Maybe not funky, they're gonna do some other style, but it's gonna become a thing.
I'm really curious. Like, I'm turning the tables on you. Who are your bass playing influences?
Definitely, Jamiroquai, not the band,
Yeah,
not JK, he's the singer. The band Jamiroquai.
Yeah.
I bought a bass actually because, I always loved bass, but one day I was like playing Persona 5, and I was like, yeah, I would like to make a cover of Persona 5, and I wrote a funky bass line for it, and I was like, fuck, I want to buy a bass to play it real. And I bought it, and I realized how fucking hard it was to play in that style as a beginner. So I didn't really finish the cover, but that convinced me to buy one. But yeah, I like Jamiroquai. I like Muse's bass player called Chris Wolstenholm. I like Coldplay's bass player. There's a girl called Blue the Tiger on TikTok that is like a freaking incredible bass player. David 504 is definitely an inspiration.
Yeah.
Shook, I don't know if you know him. There's a guy called Shook. He's a multi-instrumentalist.
No, I'm not familiar.
Music producer. Makes funky music. It's very great. Fox Capture Plan, but for double bass.
Oh my god, I love that band.
Yeah, they're fucking amazing.
So
I
good.
wish people knew them more than they do now.
Yeah,
in the West.
that specific genre of like the Japanese jazz fusion combo is so cool. I think I was curious if you've because it's interesting how like your definition of the word funky is different than my definition of the word funky.
I wouldn't say no. I just say in the same way that you say like I call myself jazz, but it's more intricate.
Right, okay. That's fair,
my
that's fair,
stuff
that's fair.
is the technical term is not funky. The technical term is new disco. That's what you would call it.
Interesting.
Or future funk, not normal funk.
Final Fantasy is future funky.
Yeah, like people will be like, "What? What is that?
What is that?" Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's so interesting. Because when I think of funk, I think of like James Jamerson, like Motown bass players.
Yeah.
Him, Bootsy Collins.
Yeah, exactly.
People like that, and that's what I think of. Or and
that is funk music. I just say funky because that's what people understand. But
exactly.
The real term is like I'm taking. So what I do is like I literally remix the tracks. Like I resample them I remix them and I put like dance music production under it, electronic music production, and then I play some bass line at 128 BPM. But it's not like a the typical bass. It's just a bass line. Yeah, something like that. And that is kind of funky, but it's not funk. Funk is much slower or something. It's more organic. It's
that's so funny. That's so funny.
Definitely funk does not necessarily have like distorted bass lines because funk has a lot of space. It doesn't have this wall of sound coming at you like in my music. But in my music, I have this understanding of like people are gonna listen to this on their phone speakers. So unless I have some fucking crazy nasty bass, they're not gonna hear the bass.
That's true.
And I also I hate when people say I can't hear the bass line, so bass is a stupid instrument. Me, like, I'm making a statement, like, hey, bass is fucking amazing and it's cool. Check this shit out. And
it's also like, if there was, you would really hear it if the bass wasn't there,
Yeah.
Like, it's so obvious. Like, I remember that, this is a weird comparison, but I remember the first time I played in concert band and we didn't have a tuba player. And then the tuba player showed up, and it was a huge difference. Like, oh my god, there's a bassist now. Like, you can actually hear it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just laughing at it because I see so much like a similarity in how I call my stuff like jazz remixes, even though they're not all like maybe a subset of jazz, but like jazz kind of describes it in the same way that you have your funky stuff.
It's not easy to market yourself or to make people understand your stuff.
Right. Because sometimes the most accurate description
is actually
oh yeah, that I wasn't thinking of that word, but like it doesn't communicate what you're trying to say to the most people.
Yeah. It's tough. But yeah, dude, you should really do it. Like, dude, I want to see. I really want to see. There's so many people in the world who are insanely talented, but they're not just marketing themselves in the way that is smart and in the way that most people can understand.
Or they've deliberately chosen not to do that. I think like
not everybody.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of people who are like, man, I wish my stuff was more seen. I'm like, you're shooting yourself in the foot when you publish these things in this way. You should do it
there
a
are
bit
things you
differently.
can. it's a really hard science to like study, I think, and to, like, to get down to a science. And honestly, I think most people just kind of stumble into it and just kind of like figure out something that, oh, this happened to work. Why did this work? Rather than like approaching it from the ground up.
But the problem with that is that people in the video game music covers industry, for example, they're following that. Like, oh yeah, this worked. I should do it more. Yeah, but that worked like 8 years ago, 6 years ago. It doesn't work anymore now. And people are still stuck with like, yeah, but that guy got 1 million views on his Megalovania cover. Yeah, fine. You know, it's over. You need to evolve. Times have changed.
You just like looking at the camera and you're like, yeah, it's over.
Yeah, no, it's really like it's done. Like, you cannot just make another Megalovania metal remix and expect it to have 1 million views just because it's Megalovania metal.
Unless I did a Megalovania remix, a Megalovania metal remix, and people be like, "What the hell?"
In that case, they'd be like, "Oh shit! Oh, that's a good strategy." Everybody, start making jazz covers.
No. I want to do like a parody of like a Family Jewels video.
Dude, do it. Dude, really, like, just fucking don't take yourself too seriously. Is what I would say.
Oh, I don't do that at all. That's really important. Like, I mean. Sometimes, yeah, but like know when to not, and don't do it all the time.
Okay, man. I don't know if we have other questions. We really talked about everything. There's one question that I'm like, well, yeah. Someone asked, when was the moment when you kind of realized you were actually a big name in the VGM cover scene?
Oh boy,
and that general area.
Yeah, I saw this question before, and I was kind of thinking about it, and
yeah, I never told myself, yeah, I'm a big name now. So that's a weird question in a way. Probably.
Yeah, it's hard to like self-define. The closest thing I can think of.
When did people start paying way more attention to you? Let's rephrase it like that.
I think the biggest inflection points in my career, there's a couple I can point out. One was when I put out Live at Grilby's, which was a Undertale jazz arrangement album. And it just kind of the album like went viral basically, and it sold pretty well, and a lot of people heard of me through that music, because, you know, Undertale music was really hot at the time, and it was, I marketed it as like the official Undertale jazz album because I got approval from through Toby from doing it, and not like a third party. And, you know, in retrospect, I don't think I would have used that terminology now because I don't think it's exactly true. But for the marketing that it did work out, like that it did do, it did something, you know. So that was one inflection point. Another one was when I put out my jazz version of the Me Channel theme.
Oh yeah.
And this I just, it was so strange because it had nothing to do with the meme. Like the meme of it. This was, I put it out before the meme kind of like took off. Oh. Because somebody in my comment section, I put out a video, it was like, the most thumbed up comments in this comment section will get, I'll do that song. And then they were like, the Me Channel theme, haha. So then I did a version of it without expecting anything.
And then the meme happened, and then you just got like,
yeah. And,
you just got credited on Google as the composer for the Me Channel.
That's so okay. Like that just goes to show like how bad the metadata is for that kind of thing. That was another fun inflection point. Was there any other, like, those were the two huge ones I can think of. Since then, most things have been growing pretty steadily. Though I think there's one more video of mine that I think is somewhat well known. It's my version of Pollyanna from
I love that one. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that was.
I only know the song because of you, by the way. That's
it's
universal. I know.
That was like one of my favorite videos I've ever made. Mostly because of the people that I was working with, and just like how the song like feels and what it means. You know, it's such like a happy song, and I felt so happy with the people in the video that I was making it with, and I think that sheer happiness just translates to other people as well. And
yeah,
I think it hit a million views recently.
Man, congrats.
Which for a random song from like Earthbound or Mother, then I don't know. That's pretty good. I'll
it's interesting. Maybe people just found it and they fucking loved the song, and it's not necessarily about nostalgia. But in that case, you know, it's just,
I don't know. Well, Adriana's also in it, and people like watching Adriana sing, I guess. So that's good.
And like, Yeah, but also it was a great arrangement. So I think there's some
Yeah,
credit.
I think all of us work together. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to do another one. I have this idea. I want to do like another one with that same band. Like another.
Yeah, another
there's
song.
a song called "Being Friends" from Earthbound, which is like kind of a similar vibe to Pollyanna, but I think we could like do a sequel. That would be kind of fun.
Okay, that would be
You heard it
amazing.
here first.
Yeah, cool. Okay, man. Like we replied to all kinds of questions and had all kinds of musings. It was an amazing time. I would ask you if there's something that you wanna talk about something you worked on,
man.
maybe Album's innovation, something you're about to drop, or
There's nothing really that I'm about to. Right now, I think I'm in a. First time, I've enjoyed this conversation a lot,
Yeah.
and it feels like the time has gone by like so fast. And,
Yeah, damn, same.
And we've talked about a whole variety of things, and I'm very pleased with that. For me right now, I feel like I'm in a very like transitional phase in how I'm handling things. Like of course, because like I think the whole world is like in a transitional time right now. But I feel it personally in that I'm figuring out how I want to handle my professional life and career going forward. And I know that, I'm not going to have like a clear yellow brick road path that I'm going to lay out for myself, but I have some ideas of how things are going to change. So that's how I feel now. And I'm just like really excited by the potential of what could be done. Because there are so many things I want to do. I think I have a lot of time left to be able to do them. And I'm pleased about that. And I'm just, excited to be alive, be here, have met the people I've met, to continue meeting more people, making more great things that make the world a better and more enriched place. And, just doing what I can to offer my skills and my passions to, not only make good art for myself, but also make entertaining things for other people. And if I can do all those things, I'll say I will have on my deathbed. I'll say I've lived a good life.
Well, sounds like you're in a good place even now. So that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
wait, I gotta talk about my new Chrome tab.
Your Chrome tab.
Yeah. So on this is a really morbid way to end the discussion, but on my new, when I open up Google Chrome and I hit the new tab button, my new tab page is a countdown to my expected death date.
You have an expected death date?
It's based on just
how do you decide that?
It's just based on averages, like the average life expectancy of a person based on my demographics, right?
Okay.
Something like that. Hold on. I don't want to change my screen layout right now, but
no, what is it?
The important part is I mention it because some people look at and they say like, Carlos, are you okay? Are you okay? But I think of it as just like, if there's one thing that unites us all as people, it's the fact that we all die eventually, right? Every single person on the planet has to go through that, and is that obviously it has its good and bad that comes with it, right? But in a way, it's the ultimate equality for all people. Is that we all go through this. We all suffer in life and we eventually die, right? Because that's just how the world works. And I try and remember that, and I try and justify myself saying that like, I'm gonna die someday. Am I really that concerned about sending this email to this one person who might look at me negatively for doing this? No, not that. Or in the grand scheme of things, no, not that worried. So it's just like it's in a way it's a little fun reminder that.
Well, it kind of liberates you, right?
Yeah, it helps me remind myself not to take everything so seriously, as you said. Take some things a little more seriously, some things less seriously, and just remember that you are lucky to be here, and you should be using the time you have.
That's very wise, because isn't that what philosophers of old used to say? Memento Mori, remember you have to die.
Yeah,
and that will lead them to live a more virtuosistic life, with less pettiness. So that's not actually, oh, I'm gonna die, I feel depressed. It's actually, you do it for the purpose of light and using your life in the best way possible.
Yeah, totally agree.
Damn, it must take it must take an incredible strength of character, however, to not illusion yourself and to just every day live in this way and be be realistic and be aware and still manage to have this stillness and this passion. Like, it's I would say you have a unique character build, you know, unique configuration, unique mindset.
I would say so.
It's very unique.
My character chart's pretty different from most people, or like maybe not that different, but unique.
No, like it's like I don't think it's weird at all. I just think it's the combination that is rare to find, and it's very precious actually, because it enables you to do a lot of things. There might be people who might be alienated a little bit, but I think it's genius. I think it's very nice actually, and it's
you can't please everybody.
Yeah, you can't. And I think like it's gonna lead you to have one of the best lives you can have, and even now it seems to me that generally speaking, you've lived a very exciting experience, and you're having a very great time. So yeah, it's good, man. I'm proud.
Oh man.
Good.
Oh man, I'm glad we've started. We've started. You're like 4 years older than me, but like I don't know. I've always felt like the son. Anyway, but like we're starting and ending off this discussion on like a very philosophical note, which is like that's my domain. I live up there.
Same.
For better or for worse.
Same. I just want to, man. If you want, one day we can do another episode where we talk philosophy. I know Jules loves philosophy a lot as well, or psychology or something.
Yeah,
it'd be amazing to just do a three-way conversation with Jules and just talk about life.
We've had some moments like in his studio, and I've been over there hanging out, and like we'll just go on off about something, and then eventually we'll just come to the conclusion that like, yep, the world's fucked. Let's just have some fun.
Yeah. Well, man, it was a pleasure to have you here. And last thing, where can people find you?
Go to, I don't know, youtube.com/Insaneintherain music, and then everything is available through links there. If you watch a video, thank you. If you don't watch a video, also thank you for putting the link in. And yeah.
All right. There you go, guys. Definitely check me out because it's fucking great. I hope you're going to make that reaction video. And the funky or jazzy, dude, just freaking Pokemon is jazzy. Dude, really? I'm not joking. That will be a blessing to see that on my timeline. So, yeah. Anyway, my man, thank you so much. And everyone watching, I hope you guys enjoyed. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.